Good afternoon to you. Welcome to the show. Sorry about the small delay. We have a little bit of a technical hiccup with the internet connection. There may be a little bit of image breaking up with Mandy's connection along the way, or one of our connections, but the picture of Mandy seems to be a bit jaggedy. The sound is good, so we're going to carry on. I'm going to put lots of pictures in it too. The guest today is going to be a treat. Mandy is an author, recently published a book. She's also a fast jet pilot, and I've got now sound coming on my side. Have you got sound on your side there, Mandy? All right, let's get to it. My name's Alex MacPhail. This is High Performance Teams. Hey, Mandy, how are you today?
Thanks.
Cool. Well, thank you for enduring the sort of gremlins, as it were. We've got a bit of a chilly snap here in Pretoria in South Africa, and I'm freezing here with a hot water bottle on my lap, but it looks quite warm on your side.
Yeah, it is actually, but it's warm and humid today. Yeah, not bad at all.
Okay, we're going to kick off straight away that nice video that you sent to me. We're going to play it, and we'll have a discussion shortly after that. So let's strap in for the ride.
You are clear to display. The wind at the moment 29011. Crosswind 7 from the right.
Wow, with an intro like that, wow.
Going now.
Okay, it was nice to chat to you, and I hope we get another chance to meet up again. Wow, Mandy, that is wonderful. I see Hickson. So your husband is also a pilot, so do you do this as a tag team combo?
Well, yeah, he's not got as many interesting stories as me. No, I'm joking. He's Navy and then was airlines for many years and retired from full-time service in the airlines about 2 years.
Okay.
So he's been TRI, TRIE. He's got more war stories than he can shake a stick at. But more. But as he says, woman, and I don't put it as well as you.
Well, someone's got to deliver, eh? Well, that's cool. So Hickson is the company, and you both do the training. I presume. I wrote down some of those nice things: leadership, teamwork, risk, resilience, courage, grit, and communication. All those wonderful topics that we like to discuss in Human Factors. So is this a tag team combo when you go into corporates doing training? Is it the two of you together?
Yeah, well, sometimes we do actually, but basically when he CRM or when crew risk management first came about and all the human factors side, he was one of the first managers of an airline, in teaching all of that. So when I left, he said, "Oh, I think it'd be a really good world for you to get into." And so actually, he's more qualified than I am on human factors side of things.
Okay.
And it's made a really interesting sort of voyage for us to set up this business together.
Okay, well, that sounds fun. Sounds great. It's an area that I'm busy exploring as well. Is this getting involved in corporate training, etc., bringing the aviation skills across the boardroom and to corporate executive teams, etc. But before we dig into the detail, which I want to get to, I want to just rewind the clock a little bit. And while you talk, I'm just going to put up some pictures as well. So I just want to get a sense of your formative time, where it all began. I was listening to some of your other talks recently, and you were exposed to flying from your grandfather telling you great stories about buzzing hills, etc. So tell me about your interest in flying.
Well, actually, I've got my logbook out. His logbook out, actually, because he did all the training during the Second World War. He was actually down in South Africa.
Okay.
And was training Harvards and Oxfords down there. And I think on one occasion he told this story of rolling inverted, even though there was no capacity for the aircraft to do that. And basically lost the oil, filled the engine. And so when he rolled back, the engine quit, surprisingly, and had to land it in the middle of the Bondi, basically. He dodged around all of these big, huge anthills.
Okay.
And had to call up on the radio to say that he'd unfortunately suffered an engine malfunction. It is joining because the only way they could get to him. They flew out and they landed again through all the same hills he had. opened up the cowling, and there was this oil splattered everywhere, and they said, yeah, we know what's happened here. So filled it up with oil, turned it round, and took off again.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And so obviously those stories, and then you were given an opportunity, or through chatting with your parents or your mum, I think it was, that you joined the cadets. Is this a picture of you as a youth getting involved in the uniform for the first time?
That is an awful uniform. That was basically before I joined the cadets. That was the Girl Guides.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we ended up performing. I was in the band, and we performed at Buckingham Palace for the 75th anniversary of guiding. And we met lots of the Her Majesties like that. But Mike's been shocked looking at the size of my forehead with that hat on. So it's not the most flattering.
All right, so uniform started at a young age, and you were exposed to the Air Cadets later on. And and your application process, I believe, was a bit of a hiccup joining the RAF too. It's quite a common thing. Well, I wouldn't say common, but it's not unusual in South Africa for when people join the Air Force to not make it the first time and then apply again. In fact, a good friend of mine, Sammy's passed on now, but Brent had applied 6 times, and on the 6th application, he made it onto pilot's course with us. And there's that resilience and grit that you spoke of earlier in that intro video. So tell me about your experience with applications of the Air Force.
So, I started flying when I was 13 on the Air Training Corps, loved it, tried to get into it. Women weren't allowed to be pilots, though. So that was a really big stumbling block, imagine. But I continued to pursue the avenue. I got a scholarship, I got my private pilot's license, went to university, flew there with a big club at university, got about 160 hours actually on small propeller airplanes. And then in my second year at uni, they changed the rules, allowing women to join. I applied, failed all the tests. In the UK, you can only take the act twice.
All right.
So, it's a bit of a shame, really. I took them the first time, failed them all. Went back and resat the second time, and I failed them again. And I really should not have been allowed to go any further. But basically, with a lot of people on my side, some fantastic mentorship, people that believed in me, we managed to get the air taken on as a test case. Basically persuade them that actually perhaps I could fly after all, and I managed to swap the air traffic controller, which is the branch that they'd offered me my commission in, and they allowed me to swap across, and they're pilots. So yeah, a bit of resilience was required there. Without a doubt.
All right, but I like your approach to this idea that it's not exactly what you want to do. I know you sort of reframed it in your mind to say, well, yes, it is an officer first, and as we'll get to your book shortly, but this idea that get your foot in the door and make yourself known and do a good job, and when opportunities present themselves, they already know you. You're a known quantity, and they'll certainly give an opportunity to someone they know before that somebody that's on the street. So great idea. Again, resilience.
Yeah.
And courage, I suppose. It's not exactly what you want to do, but get stuck in somewhere and see where that road takes you.
I think it's a really good life lesson, that, isn't it? That sometimes you actually have to accept you're not going to go straight into the glory job, that you might need to work your way up, and how many times you get in business as well.
Well, that's also one of the things that we want to discuss today, is this idea of the journey. We have some people tuning in, some other fighter pilots. Corbus, thanks for joining. So please, guys, bring your questions. Remember today, the best question, once again, we're going to win that nice handcrafted wallet. So bring them in as we continue chatting. So Mandy, you get into the Air Force and onto pilots training, and I've got a picture of I call it a then and now, and I've just flashed that picture up for now. Now, what is the trophy for?
I actually won it. It was called the Paul Gay Trophy. It was a trophy for leadership at advanced flying training.
Okay.
And yeah, I was really honoured to be awarded the trophy, basically, for the person that they considered to be the best leader within the course.
So was that on the basic flying training, on the Tucano, was it?
No, that was advanced flying training. So that was on the Hawk, RAF Valley in Anglesey. It was the day that we got our wings. So I was standing there very proud. Very proud.
Sure, I remember that. There's a great day. You're not going to wipe the smile off anyone's face on Wings Day.
Yeah.
All right, so you're flying advanced training on Hawk. Was the advanced training, is that the latter part of your pilot training course? It wasn't a separate thing after getting wings?
No, well, so actually it was interesting. At the time, they had done it so that you did you did advanced flying training on the Hawk, and at the point where you can fly the aeroplane, they then awarded wings. But you hadn't done any of your weapons training,
sure.
Operational side of that flying training. So they split the course basically into 2 halves. The first one was at 208 Squadron, where we got our wings at the end of that. Then we had a 2-week break, and then we would start 74 Squadron or 74 Fighter Squadron, which was basically all about weapon delivery, air combat training, battle formation, you know, all of those more operational aspects of flying. But you had already bizarrely got your wings, yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, it's interesting as well. I have these conversations a lot, and certainly in South Africa, and I presume in British Airways, it's quite similar too. There's quite a strong feed of Air Force, you know, military training that ends up in the airline. There's a big percentage. And just talking through the different generations and how they change, you know, one year it was a full pilot's course on the Harvard, and then next year it was half on Harvard and half on the MRK 326, and then it was half on a Harvard, then a bit on an Alouette, and it changed. And isn't it interesting how every couple of years the system changes?
It is, and it's strange because when we were going through, we just started, and they decided to suddenly start streaming everyone after elementary flying, the first course, where suddenly people were going, right, you're off to fly helicopters, and we go, what? I thought I had the next course before you decided that. So, yeah, it's a bit frustrating that does change like that.
Yeah, and again, this goes back to the comment made earlier. No, it doesn't always work out exactly as you like. I mean, certainly at the end of my pilot's course, we had a choice. You had, you know, put an order of preference, which stream you'd like to go into, and fighters and helicopters, transport. So effectively, it was 3 choices. But in the end, you get your 4th choice. Well, I thought there were only 3. Oh, no, but you're in a holding pattern to go to your 3rd choice. So that becomes the 4th choice.
The joy of holding, yeah, I think holding in total for about 2.5 years going through flying training.
Oh, wow.
Just frustrating.
So,
yeah.
so I can stop feeling sorry for myself. I did about 9 months of holding, and I was, you know, and most of that was done shortly after getting my wings, which is, you know, that's the time you just want to be let loose and go and burn holes in the sky.
That is frustrating, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay, so after the advanced training, you get onto, is it straight away from Hawk onto Tornado? By the way, Tornado was the aircraft that there's a photo of the Tornado in my logbook. That's the aircraft I really wanted to fly, even though we never had Tornadoes. And it was just one of those airplanes that just looked so nice. And my mum lives...
Fantastic. Yeah, exactly.
My mum lives up in Fort William, so the Tornadoes would regularly fly past her house from Lossiemouth.
Oh, yeah, well, that's where I did my training. So I was well, it used to be Tri-National Service, which was down at Cottesmore, and then it moved up to a National Operational Conversion Unit up at Lossiemouth. And so we were number 1 course, which was wonderful. And we started on G1s, and it was only a couple of years later that they swapped across and we had the upgrade onto GR4. But yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, the Tornado, I always think, I mean, when you look at it, it just looks like what it's designed to do, doesn't it? Like what it's going.
Yes.
You can hang a lot of stuff on it. You know, it's fantastic.
Yeah, and it was this course 1. I've just put a picture, try to get a picture of Tornado as you talk about it. So what's happening in this pic? Is this at the end of your training of Tornado, or is this part of your tours?
No, that was my very last flight on a Tornado. So we'd been on a really exhausting trip actually from the Squadron, and we landed, and yeah, basically the guy said, right, glass of champagne, and then you had to quickly take all your kit off, like your life support jacket and your or your G-suit, because they then throw you into this stagnant water, which is really repulsive.
So yeah, you sent that picture of the, you know, I've called it the solo pit because that looks like what we were doing. Is this that stagnant pool of water that you're talking about?
That's 2 other people into them on that one, yeah.
So in the beginning, when you go through the solo pit, etc., you've just gone solo for the first time. You get this. Even at the end of your career, you're not immune from being thrown into some pool of water or a bucket of ice chucked on you.
Yeah, that's the joy, isn't it? That's the banter and the love of it.
Oh, wonderful. And there's also such a common theme. You can talk to some Air Force pilots from around the world, and there certainly is a common theme of the traditions and the rules and the processes and the squadron life, the discipline, the SOPs, just in general. You know, I think a military pilot is a military pilot around the world.
Yeah, and actually I really loved that actually. We would do exercises quite a lot. And you go over to the States, you'd be working, and you work with so you sort of go in and you're talking the same language right from the off, aren't you? Just like all those same acronyms and abbreviations. But we all
Yeah, that's great. Well, we've jumped around a little bit, so this might just be a jumping around conversation, which I'm happy with. That's fine. But what I wanted to find out was, so you ended up at number 1 operational course, GR1, GR4, and then from finishing the operational course, this is somewhere between 6 and 12 months, the training, is that right?
Yeah, it's about 9 months.
9 months, okay. And how soon after that is there talk of you going on a deployment somewhere? I mean, could it be right away?
Yeah, well, to a squadron. So I got posted down to 2 Squadron, which is shiny too, as its nickname is, oldest fixed-wing squadron in the Air Force. It was a real honour to get down there, actually.
Okay.
It's called shiny too, and gets really promoted to a very high level. Damn! So my boss at the time on 2 Squadron ended up as the chief of the Air Force to the previous incumbent, and the current incumbent, Mike Wigston, was his deputy. So yeah, 2 very, very high-profile bosses basically from the squadron at the time. But fantastic. So I was there, and then I think we were posted out to the no-fly zone to defend the no-fly zone over southern Iraq.
Okay.
After about 4 months of being on the squadron.
All right. So just to give a sense of for the listeners now, so you got your wings, and it's about 13, 14, 15 months after that you are in Iraq.
Yeah, that's right.
Sure.
Yeah.
And at that point, I mean, you're gung ho, you're fully trained up, and you're ready for it, and adrenaline's pumping, etc. But this is real. This is not we're not doing simulation, and this is not boardroom decisions about investments. You're in a war zone.
You're in a war zone, and they are shooting at you. Yeah, on numerous occasions, enemy fire in the form of artillery, aircraft fire, basically. And also we were engaged by surface-to-air missile on one occasion. So it certainly wasn't suddenly just we're playing games here at war. You actually are in an operational theatre, and you're making some really, really big decisions. A relatively early stage of your career as well, Alex, to be honest.
Yeah, as I was saying, you're fired up and gung ho because this is what you're training for, etc. But at the same time, you've got that sense that I've just started this. What are you, about 24 at the time?
Yeah, I was actually 24 when I got online.
Yeah, if you think back now to the time, your way of thinking about life at 24, it's quite different to what did I sign up for?
It's amazing, isn't it? That hindsight vision when you look back and you think, as a young person, you sort of feel invincible, and you feel like you know so much more than you actually do.
Yeah.
And I see that I've got teenage boys now, and they absolutely believe they are invincible in anything they do. And it's only when something happens they go, I can't believe that's happened. It's almost shock. This has happened to them. How dare it?
Yeah. Well, before we get off the training on the Tornado, Marcus is asking, what would you say was the most difficult thing for you while learning to fly the Tornado, and how did you overcome it?
I think, I'll tell you what, one thing that I found, it wasn't probably the most difficult, but actually, ironically, it was the best thing about learning to fly was the fact that at that stage of your career, you're being trained to be a seat pilot in some ways. They want to check your capacity, they want to challenge you, they want to, on the ball, and then suddenly you get to the front line, or you get to fly Tornado, and I was suddenly working with the navigator. And it was just there going, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. I love the team ethos of that. Much like the captain and first officer in the airline world, suddenly you've got 2 of you making decisions. And also, that was a very interesting one, working really on that resource management and that human factor element, of the hierarchical gradient, having a pilot in the front seat that's officially the captain, but with someone with his experience. So that balancing game that you need to play there is really, really.
I remember that stood out for me in one of your interviews I was watching before, and this just sense of I was being evaluated all the time, but now I'm being trusted, and now it's a case of making you the best that you can be. And that's a wonderful feeling. That's almost this sort of coming of age, and I'm sure a lot of industries have it, but certainly when it comes to operating a weapons platform on the front line, there is no greater responsibility that just gets handed over to you. Firstly, you've got a multi-million-pound machine. Secondly, your country or wherever you're defending depends on it. But thirdly, your life's on the line.
Yeah, absolutely. But you're right. It feels so incredibly empowering, that moment when you suddenly realise they're not testing you to chop. They're training you to be able to do the job, and that was a real mental shift when you were on the operational command unit, because you proved you could fly, you could do instrument flying, you can do all the bits, and it was just bringing it together to make you combat ready.
And the sophisticated level of equipment that you've moved on to, this, as you say earlier, this is a real machine. I mean, you standing next to that aircraft, it's massive. It's a big, solid machine, and it's got sophisticated equipment, not only on the weapons platform, but that nap of the earth, follow the terrain low level in the instrument conditions. It just sounds like an amazing tool to use.
It is. I mean, I loved about the Tornado. I mean, the capability, when you think about that terrain following radar, TFR, being able to plug in autopilot, step a machine down, and suddenly you're at low level in pitch black. You can't see anything. You're not touching the control, and yet you still can deliver a weapon on time, on target. And that is a pretty phenomenal bit of kit, really. In fact, I've seen. I love Corbett's comment there. Why not? I'm going to. I enjoyed air combat, but not as much as I loved low level. You know, and you say you were fortunate enough to fly with 11 Squadron from there. Bizarrely, one of my favourite ever flights was out of Leeming as well. Not Leeming, out of Lucas. And there was what's called a combined QY course. So all the qualified weapons instructors all going through their individual training courses on their aircraft type. They all come together for this CQY, combined QY course. And it's where they're all going to be challenged at the very final stages of their training to be weapons instructors. Okay. And we did it at RAF Lucas, and I was just there as we were brought in as a squadron just of people supplements the crews. And basically, on the last day, they'd gone through all the QYs that needed to be assessed. And they said, anybody want to step up and be the leader there? And it's all Mandy. You're about to do your pairs lead qualification. This might be a really nice training for you. I was like, I don't think so. I'm here with the best of the best. And they're all looking again. Why not? So I said, yeah, sure. And that was a pretty remarkable flight, actually. You know, I loved it. So we were all over Scotland, down that west coast of the UK, using all of the ranges as well, the electronic warfare ranges, bringing all the different aircraft types together. So yeah, it was a bit more than a 2v1. I think it was probably about 20 of aircraft, including aircraft. I got my pairs lead at the end of it.
Oh, wonderful. That's wonderful. Okay. Well, you mentioned earlier as well, which I just want to touch on before we move on to the next part, is this idea of spending time in the United States. So you've also spoken about arriving in the desert there with your 8 Tornadoes, etc. But just give us a sense of the type of operation and putting it all together and being involved in such a big international community, with reference to the fact that later on you're going to serve together, maybe not with the same people, but certainly with the same nationalities again, in combat.
Yeah, so I mean, I found that when we went out, it was on an exercise called Red Flag, and I actually had so lucky to get 2 red flags in my time, which was unbelievable, really. And we went out there, and there's lots of different nationalities. I think we had some Turkish pilots out there, a lot of Americans, and you're up against their Red Air, basically their fighter pilots who were brilliant at shooting you down. They were very talented at that. But you all went with a certain remit. So for us, we wanted to drop a certain amount of live weapons. They might introduce things like combat survival, i.e. a downed aircraft, and we had to run a scenario imagining that suddenly we were on-scene commanders. But out there, they really go with that philosophy of let's train harder than you will ever have to fight for real. Because if you're taking a coalition of aircraft in Iraq, you want to have practiced together beforehand. And okay, you're not going to be practicing with exactly the same people, but you're practicing with the right format. Yeah. And you're getting used to how does it work? How does it work to speak the same language as the Americans, or different nationalities coming together? And that was really, really important.
So train like you fight, and then fight like you train.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, great. So you did 3 tours in Iraq, was that right?
Yeah.
So any difference between getting home from the first one and that feeling, and then just knowing that you're going again, and that sort of feeling that you're going in on the second one? Were there differences in emotions or feeling of competence or experiences going there?
Yeah, well, it was interesting actually, because the first one wasn't my favourite time. Actually, we had a character on the squadron that made my life a little bit more unpleasant. I'll be brutally up front and say that. I talked about it in my book, so it's not a secret. And at the end of it, I sort of came back thinking, gosh, I've done all this training, and actually being the only woman out there with all the men, it was really tough. And I came back and said to my fiance, oh my gosh, have I made a hideous mistake? And he was like, are you joking? You've done all this training. Surely you can't be thinking these negative thoughts. But then over the time we went out for the second time, I got more of a standing on the squadron, I got more seniority, I'd learned a lot more as well. I mean, I went out the first time with literally just 3 months of frontline flying under my belt.
Yeah.
Suddenly again, back a year later.
Characters had changed on the squadron. Yeah, and I felt so much more competent. In fact, I sort of went out there almost excited to
Get on with the job that second time. And
certainly
certainly
the
the
third
third.
time, yeah, it's absolutely fine.
And was it always manning the no-fly zones?
It was, yeah. So we came back from the Gulf, and then
Gulf War II started a little months after I got back. So because our
squadron
rotation had just
back,
Okay.
the next squadron took over, so it wasn't our time to go out.
Oh.
So yeah, we get to take part too.
Okay, all right. I know there's mixed feelings about that too, but I want to move on to your latest endeavors. And so we can transition this, and you can refer back and forth between the idea of the book and the time spent. But when did you? How long ago did you leave, or what age were you? Did you finish your time in the RAF?
So I left in 2011, so years ago, and I then rejoined as a volunteer reservist. So I then flew. So it's how I started.
it was really lovely for me to
Pass on that love
Mm.
to the youngsters, and also I was really aware that there still aren't very many female role models.
Mm.
So few females still
Across the whole of aviation,
Sure.
not just in the military,
but also in the
civilian sector too.
Mm.
And so I was determined for the girls to actually see that
women can
women can, and they're more than capable of doing it. So I did 17 years, just under 17 years,
and
then I've done I did 8 as a volunteer reservist, or 7.5 it was,
and then I left
and then last Christmas, a year last Christmas. So I ran out of time raising boys as well, and I was balancing being away, doing a lot of work overseas, speaking and with my business, and I suddenly thought, you know what, I might need to just be mum for a bit at the weekends rather than flying all the time as well.
Sure. Okay. So was the reserve force flying? Was that mainly done on weekends?
Yeah, it was for me.
Way a lot
in the
Okay.
week. So that was only half an hour,
just
flying little tutor grobs,
Mm.
so little aeroplanes, aerobatics.
But you had a lovely story about the young girl that you'd taken flying. I mean, please share that story once again.
Yeah, so I
this young lady, and
she laid it out, and I was my last cadet, and I was really tired, and this girl walked out, and she did not
look motivated.
quite a grumpy look on her face, bent over, and basically we I said, "Hi, you ever flown before?" No, she was very grumpy.
We got airborne though, and she
She was really very, very talented,
real
natural
aviator. You meet some of them occasionally.
Mm.
They are
few and far between, but people that have an absolute raw ability.
And I got her flying and did lots of turns
And all the rest of it, and she was proving more and more capable, but she was still grunting at me. And then basically at the end, we landed this aeroplane, having done
aerobatics,
and she was better than them, which was very frustrating.
So I just said, this is something you want to do.
And she said, "What?" And I said, "You're really good at it." She's, "Oh,
just say that to everyone." I was like, no, I don't say it to everyone.
Yeah.
is this
Something
something you want to do?
really,
Because
really good.
you really,
And she sort of got eye contact, and she suddenly basically opened up that it was all she'd ever wanted to do. She'd been so
Really?
scared she was going to fail. She decided not to try it, not to engage in it.
Mm.
And it's just that reflective behaviour.
Good.
where we think when
When we're
we're
worried
about something like that, we back away, we put in defences. But actually,
That's
seizing that moment, it's amazing what you can achieve.
Yeah.
Lovely moment.
And isn't it great to, even if it was for the 7.5, 8 years that you did it, if it was just for that one person, that it was all worthwhile. You can make an impact on such a small moment. You can make such a big impact.
Yeah, absolutely, Alex. And to be honest, when I left, I started speaking, motivational speaking, keynote speaking at a lot of schools. And often I just say, if I can change the mind of
one student at the end, if they come,
then actually it's fantastic. I would do that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm just getting some comments that the sound isn't so good. That's a pity. Sorry about that, Brian. I do see your message. Is it only on Mandy's sound? If you can just type a message, that'd be great. I'm going to continue nevertheless. But Mandy, so I want to then transition into your book, because recently published in the last, was it about 2 months ago?
This one.
That's the one. Hold it still in case the picture doesn't stay. Hold it still. All right. And it's such a clever title. Was that your title?
Yeah, and officer.
Yeah, and so basically, I went through lots of different titles.
I wanted to go for bird's eye
Because I
view,
but I was told my husband that I wasn't allowed to do that.
Right, clever. But no, an officer, not a gentleman. That's a nice twist
To it, really.
Yes, yeah, and I'm going through this process myself now, and it's a lot of hard work to write a book, and the idea of sitting down and grafting, but there's also something that I wanted to just understand from you, because this is a big project to write a book. But obviously you've gained the experience over all the years. I mean, 20 plus years of stories and experience and learnings along the way. Did you keep a journal along the way? Did you start making notes, or is this something that you sat down and tried to dig back and look at photos and look at logbooks and start from the beginning in the last 2 years?
Yeah, well, it took me about 3 years to do, and I worked really closely with a great friend of mine who actually is an excellent
journalist as well. So we would
talk for hours, and then he and I wrote it together. But you know, he would put it together, and I would edit it heavily, so that my voice was really heard.
But no, it mainly came from the logbook side of things.
What's your name about the volume?
Yeah, I see.
What's the best thing about that?
Yeah, I'm not so sure either now. I tell you, have you got a headset there that we could maybe plug in, even if it's just a phone headset, just to test that, rather than the external mic. It might be that your mic is picking up your speaker, your computer speaker.
I'll tell you what I do. I'll tell you what. I'm going to unplug this one and just go purely from my
Try it just from the computer. Okay, let's try that.
computer. Let's
Okay.
see if that works any better.
Okay, so you can just type in the message there, Brian, Dad, Roberts, if you want to just add a message, that'd be great. Yes. Okay, so you say it's a 3-year deal, working on the book. Is that 3 years, 5 days a week?
No.
So it was basically just
We tried to get a literary agent. We got a literary agent, and then
we were trying to get a publishing deal, and that
lengthy program.
it stagnated the project by about 18 months. Which is a shame. We didn't manage to get a publishing deal in the end, so I decided to self-publish via Amazon, really, and it's been going really, really well. I'm blown away by the response it's been getting.
Oh, wonderful. So give me an idea, because I have no idea what it is to publish a book. What was your expectation, and where are you sitting at with the reception so far?
Well, so in the first month, I sold 12 copies. I'm up to about 1,500 copies in the first 5 weeks.
That does sound good. Sure.
Yeah, considering I'm not getting any PR apart from social media, LinkedIn, and just doing the odd blog and Twitter and things.
I think that's pretty impressive.
It's Googled
what's a good amount of books to sell.
Books. It's about 200 to 300 a year for a
self-published author.
Okay. So it's a really good starting point. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to hear. I hear that the echo is about the same. All right. That's a bit of a disappointment. I wonder if it's worth... I think we should maybe just soldier on for my side, maybe, because I'm recording it, and perhaps if I replay it later, we can tweak the sound. But anyway, let's continue the conversation for now. So that sounds amazing. If your target is 200 to 300 in a 12-month period, and you get 1,500 in 5 weeks, I would agree that it's going really well. And are you getting some personal responses? Are people reaching out to you that you hadn't heard from in a long time, or complete strangers loving your work, or what's the reception like?
Well, that's actually the thing
That's blown me away.
Probably getting about 5 emails.
Getting emails or messages via LinkedIn and Twitter
and things from people that it's really brings back a whole host of memories.
And that is just so lovely.
And they're long
emails about how they did this, what happened there. A lot of people sort of
commenting on how much they're enjoying
the writing style of it, because it's so easy to read.
Okay, well, that's amazing. And did you enjoy the process of writing? Because that is it's not an easy job, but it's also something that you start getting better and better at each chapter as you go along.
Yeah. It is hard. It's hard. I've always been much better at the speaking, communicating
via
that medium. And so I laid...
when I have a role to do like
writing, I always put it as my last.
But so it was a challenge, but I'm so pleased that we persevered.
Oh, great. Okay, so I want to talk about some of the specific things then, that some of the transferable skills. You've talked about the leadership, the teamwork, the risk communication. So stepping out of the full-time role in the Air Force, in the RAF, and you get involved in training and consulting and speaking. Tell me about some of the things that you see, being a frontline fast jet pilot, a high-performance team operating in a squadron environment, a formation of 3 aircraft on a strike, etc. What are the transferable skills that you share with your paying public, as it were, or people coming to listen to you talk?
Well, when you look at the human factors side of things, like all those aspects that you just talked about, and if you think about when you're in business, things like culture, how empowered are your teams? As a manager or as a leader, do you tell people to get on with it? Is it more autocratic leadership style, or are you really empowering others to make those decisions? And the one is that taking ownership of your decisions, that being accountable. And I think that people assume with the aviation industry is that it's very autocratic. And ironically, it's not. You are held accountable for your decisions that you make, and you're empowered to get on with those decisions. And that is a really great lesson for businesses as well. And what I've seen a lot during lockdown is the fact that businesses are saying, as leaders, that they've had to let people get on with it. They've had to trust them at home to get on with their jobs, that everyone will be doing it. And bizarrely, everyone's saying, do you know what? I'm actually genuinely enjoying the fact that I've been given that space to make decisions, and actually feel more empowered. And also things like on making processes, how keep awareness of what's going on. Situational awareness, which is something in aviation we're all really familiar with. How do we improve our awareness of the situation, but also of other people around us, and have an understanding and be empathetic to what others are going through? So there are lots of transferable skills, to be honest.
And do you prefer the idea of giving a sort of a keynote talk to an event, or do you prefer to get stuck in and do 3 or 4 days of training at one place with a specific team?
I don't mind. I'm very happy to do either. The keynote speeches, I'll be brutally honest, were going through the roof. So I was pretty much fully booked all over Europe, and I was pretty much. So like March was one of my key months, and I had a day off. And COVID, they're going, I have lots of days off.
Okay.
So keynote speeches, very much into man, which was a wonderful place to be. You can never sit on your laurels. And actually, I do love facilitating training, and I always have done. And I love like human factors training, with airlines, but with businesses as well.
Sure.
So we've put together lots of different courses as well that we're going out and delivering now online, and some of those have more been powerful, I would say, than face-to-face sessions.
Oh wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think the world has changed, and we've got to the idea that we can accept that some things are just done online, and we can't do anything about it now, but they might not go back to face-to-face because online is sufficiently good. Sometimes good enough is good enough, and you don't need to fly across the world to get to somewhere, or even if it is to the next town or whatever, you can just do a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, the training that we've been doing we've been on live learning, it actually shows us that we were working with people all over the States, and 15 people in a room training for 3 hours at a time, which is brilliant. And you can see on their faces there's no hierarchical gradient, people are not worried, so that's really good.
And what have you done about the keynotes? Are you still doing some keynotes via Zoom, or are they just kind of parked for now?
No. In fact, they've been pretty popular actually. I've probably been doing, nothing like I was doing before. Everyone's hit this wall, but I wall a little bit. And they realise that teams do need motivating, especially if they're having these meetings and getting the whole team together. Actually having a bit of motivation Monday or a feel good Friday. And so actually you've got intimacy that you wouldn't have if you were just doing a big keynote on a stage. Suddenly people can ask questions. It feels a much more intimate environment to do it in.
Okay, all right. I must explore that a little bit more, because same as you, I had lots of bookings lined up from March onwards that all just disappeared when you couldn't gather into a room anymore. But I haven't seen the same transfer over to the online opportunity yet. But anyway, we'll get to that one. One of the things that stood out when you sent me your photos, I'm just going to put some pictures up, is this picture. It looks like a survival course. It was just you making a fire, looking after yourself. And that's also one of the things that I find corporates find interesting. Do you share any stories of survivals, or sort of the basics of being, as you say, an officer or being a soldier, as apart from being a pilot, where there's certain things you just have to do, and corporates, they almost bad command or file name, don't understand why you'd be in the bush for 10 days and looking after yourself kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the book there's quite a few stories from the combat survival side of things, especially I did put a whole chapter in there all about the conduct after capture course,
where you actually get interrogated and
yeah, that's pretty stressful. But it's one of the big team bonding sides of things is when you're doing these survival exercises. And my least favourite bit would be capturing rabbits and having to kill rabbits and take heads off chickens, and then I dropped my chicken and it ran into a river. So there really is a saying, running around like a headless chicken, which was quite amusing. Yeah, there's lots of stories like that. The worst experience I had on a survival exercise was when we had to dig graves for ourselves, because it was basically about hiding from the enemy. And so I actually had to dig a grave, basically get into a grave. This was us on conduct after capture course. That's when the day we finished. I mean, we look exhausted, absolutely shattered. I'm very dirty. I think it was a 7-day course, and that was day 7 after 24 hours of interrogation. So yeah, that was challenging. But being in the grave, I actually was dreading it. But then when I got into this grave, I was lying in this grave under the ground, and I could hear them all, the troops wandering over the top of me. And I obviously was trying to be so quiet, I actually fell asleep. And the reason that they came to me towards the end was that they actually heard me snoring. So,
Oh, wonderful.
funny.
But I can also recall these times of survival, going through it. There's mixed feelings, like what's going to happen, what is it about before you start. Then you get into it and there's a bit of discomfort, and then there's that sort of dip where you're really feeling a bit of a low. You might be tired, hungry, cold, or all of the above. And then you get to a point where there's almost a mild sense of euphoria kicks in, where you're with your bunch of mates and you're all in it together. And if there was ever any pilot that went through this before me and passed, then I can pass too.
Yeah. So did you enjoy them in the end then?
I did. Our course, I think our total survival training was 4 weeks, of which we spent the better part of 1 week at sea, around the beaches on the dinghy overnight, and then 1 week in the bush, hiding out or trying to evade trackers. But it was a lot of fun, and looking back, it was even more fun looking back than being in it. But certainly it was fun, and I can remember particularly at the end of the survival course, like that photo you showed there of day 7, starving. You haven't really eaten for the past 5, 6, 7 days, and now you're just going to stuff your face, and you just can't. Your stomach is shrunk, and you're hungry. But one small hamburger does the trick.
Well, I think we went curry, and we all fell asleep in the curry.
Oh, that's cool. And all right, well, you know what? This has been a fun conversation. It's been a bit of a pity on the technical glitches. I know you've got to get ready for the next your next appointment coming up soon. But Mandy, just regarding your book and your opportunities, and if people are interested to try and get hold of you now, what's the best way to get hold of you, or get a copy of your book, or get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I know a lot of people get in touch with me via LinkedIn. I'm just on Mandy Hickson, or Amazon as well. If you just Google Amazon, not a gentleman. Twitter, Mandy Hickson again. Instagram, Mandy Hickson Speaker. And I'm on Facebook as Mandy Hickson Speaker. So, you know what, if you want to get in touch,
there's lots of different ways to do so, and I'd be delighted to answer any questions.
Oh, that's wonderful. Mandy, thank you so much for your time. I do hope that we get another chance to chat, and perhaps we even get to meet one day when the world settles down again.
That would be wonderful, without the lag.
Yeah. Thank you, Mandy. All the best.
Thanks, Alex.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
Well, folks, thank you for joining. Apologies for the delay and some of the snags along the way. It was a pleasure to have such a wonderful guest, and do suggest you go and get her book. It's going to be some great stories. Please remember to share, like, and send this on to someone who might be interested. Until we meet again, please stay safe.